Well, welcome back to Inspired Caring. We are trying to figure out some technology this morning, and that didn't really come together. So we are just going to go old school, record straight through Zoom about next level aging. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with my mother, Deborah Ferris, the brilliant curator of the website, The Curious Senior, to have this conversation about things she has done to set herself up for success as she anticipated reaching advanced ages eventually at some point. So, welcome, Mom.
I'm happy to be here. Finally. We worked this time out. We've been working on this for like a year or something.
I think we have. Lots gone on, just like other families. So I'm really
pandemics later.
Yes, exactly. So I'm grateful that we're having this conversation. So it seems like there are a couple of aspects. One are some just realities and truths about next level aging. And then the other are how to set yourself up for success and really have better outcomes with next level aging. So I guess maybe just backing up, what does next level aging mean to you? Like, I have an idea of what it means to me, but I'm curious, just what does that mean?
Well, I got to the next level of aging when my daughter Michelle said to me, "So you refer to yourself as an old lady. Do you think of yourself as being old?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because you better do it. You better think of yourself as old because things are happening and you have to deal with them." So that's sort of what I mean. You know, when you're 50, you think, wow, look at this. I got a makeover. I got my colors done. I look fabulous.
Yeah.
And I got this whole future ahead of me. You know, I'm an adult now and off we go. You hit 60 and you're like, wow, I'm this far from having my own life, my life to myself, where I don't have to report to anybody. I don't have to show up any place in particular on any given day, every day. Don't have to deal with those pesky bosses. So you're pretty excited about your future. So then you get to be 70 and you're feeling pretty good. And people are like, your doctor, he says, I have another patient that's your age and you guys are 20 years apart.
Wow.
You're 20 years younger and she's 20 years older.
Wow.
I mean, you're 10 years younger and she's 10 years older. You're both a certain age, but
biologically,
somehow or other, you are in different leagues. You're like different brackets. I think of her as 80. I think of you as being 60.
Yes.
And so, you know, at one point he was suggesting that I get a certain test. I don't even remember what it was. And I said, well, that test is supposed to be given to people under 65. And he's like, well, yeah, I know that.
How old are you at this time?
At least 70. I was at least 70.
And
it's right there in his record. He's looking at his record. So I said, yeah, that's not me. And I would love to have the test. It was for when they came out with basically a cure for hepatitis C.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes. And they said, basically what we want to pick up are the people, mostly baby boomers, that were out there messing around and doing drugs and all that kind of stuff. And we want to see how many of them are infected with hepatitis C and get that fixed. And among his client group, I think he had 2 people that came out as actually tested positive. I did not. He said, well, we're going to run the test for you anyway, because obviously you were doing the same things that all the boomers were doing, even though you're a little bit ahead of them. I call myself on the cusp of it. So basically that is at a point where I said, I turned 75 and people were dropping dead like flies. I am, my graduating class from high school is 1963.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined the webpage that they maintain. And every couple of weeks, there's an in memoriam.
Wow.
And we're all the same age. We're all within a year of each other.
So what is your current age right now?
78.
You're 78. And how many
Yes.
medications do you take?
I was lucky enough to find a doctor who would give me hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
Just as if I call it gender affirmation, quite honestly, because I am a woman and I need those hormones to feel like a woman.
I love that.
And that's it. That's about it.
So that's all you take. No blood pressure, no cholesterol, no antidepressant.
None of that. I'm his most boring patient. So
be a boring patient.
I think he walked in, I demanded an exam after 3 years. And he walked in, I'd had blood work done. He walked in and he said, so how are you? And I said, well, I'm fine. He said, okay, I'll go now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but he looked at, and I finally at the end of the session, I said, we had some blood work done. Could you give me kind of some information on what you saw? And he's like flipping through, nothing here, nothing here, nothing here. Now a few years ago, I tested deficient in B12.
Mm.
So he said, just take take a pill every day. So I do take B12. Mm-hmm. I also am one of those, I'm like everybody else in Canada, where I am right now, I'm deficient in D3.
Okay. So,
but that goes way back. And the doctor kept bumping it up by 1,000 units back when I lived in New York. So, and my dermatologist says, you've got English skin, that skin that only does well in foggy places. Okay. So, anyway, so that's, I take C because I take calcium because there is a myth out there. I don't know if it's true or not, that it will help with my bones.
Okay.
And I've read the research. I'm the curious senior. I read the research and I'm not being fully valid. I don't think it's fully validated that it does help, but I take it anyway. So
why not?
Why not? And I take a little zinc because that has been shown to boost your immune system.
Okay. So some supplements, but other than that, you're not on any medications.
No.
So maybe today the focus of the conversation, because I do think it's important for people to really understand some of the real aspects of aging, and
yes,
because there's a lot of emotion that can be tied to different things, and so maybe let's focus on that for today, and then in our part 2, we'll leave a little cliffhanger and talk about everything that you've done over time to really set yourself up for success, to look so great and to feel great and to be as healthy as you are. So what are some of the things that make next level aging more difficult? And my goal here is not only to help us set ourselves up for success, but just as family care partners and caregivers, really bridge some empathy so that if you're helping somebody who is 60 plus years old, that you can start to understand some of the things that maybe they're experiencing, so that we can have a little more grace around aging, grace for ourselves and grace for them. So let's talk about, I have a big list in front of me of things that you noted. And I think I just kind of want to, as you're sharing, I'm going to be checking things off the list here. So Let's talk about your driver's license. What does that look
That,
like when you get older?
well, the last time I renewed my driver's license, it was until I turned 78, which is happened yesterday or 2 weeks ago, or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's good. It's for 4 years, no big deal. So I was 74, got it renewed, 78. I thought that was pretty good. Then I started reading up on 80-year-olds. And I thought, I'm not 80. But I started looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, they're only going to renew my license for 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah. So I got the license renewed. Made myself up and went in and got a really nice picture taken, by the way.
yeah.
And they said, here's your 2-year driver's license. So I'm like, oh my goodness, that's reality
Right.
really coming down on you. And I know years ago when we were trying to get Grandma Ferris to give up her license or to stop driving, we didn't care if she kept the license. You know, it was like people need to be tested. People need, you can't just keep driving. But when you were confronted with it yourself, that is like that's when you start saying, okay, one of my sisters died at 78. Another one died at 81. Now, here is the big the big dichotomy is that I'm a healthy 78-year-old and they were not. Neither one of them was. They were both morbidly obese, which will be picked up in the second phase of this.
Right.
But, you're saying one of them died in the same year that I am in now.
Right.
Now she was in a home for people with,
Memory
dementia,
loss.
memory loss. And but still, that was her age.
Right.
And my sister Terry, of course, she had a congenital heart failure. No, she had congestive heart failure. Sorry.
Right.
And when I asked my doctor about that, he said, yeah, that's people who don't exercise enough. Okay. And so their heart muscle, you have to keep your heart muscle strong so that it pumps the blood out.
And so not a hereditary thing.
Not a hereditary thing.
Okay. And that sister did not have a driver's license. So she kind of never had to go through this. But so as you're looking at your situation and renewing at 80, it just feels very real about this next level.
Very real that this is like the next level. In addition, just to kind of lead you back to lead you into the cataract thing, which also was a big wake-up call.
Yeah.
I've had emerging cataracts since I was in my 50s. 60s, they say, yeah, you've got cataracts forming. They don't do anything about them until they mature. And so your vision gets worse and worse. And I'm like saying, well, when will they do something about it? When can I go in and have the operation? And he's like, well, when you can't see anymore, really. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me if I have to renew my driver's license.
Right.
And have to take a road, have to get tested, my eyesight tested. So finally, last year when I was 77, he says, 76, actually, I think, no, he was right around there, turning 77. He said, okay, they've all grown up. And so they're all grown up now. And so I'm going to refer you to an eye clinic to go in for the surgery. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to, you're planning your life, but you can't see all that well. And I think he actually babied me along with my glasses and stuff like that, so that I could pass a driver's test up to that point. It was 2030 will pass a driver's test. could be even 2035 or something like that. So anyway, I waited until I had all my social events out of the way for that period of time. And then I went in and had one eye done.
Right.
And then had the second eye done. And it turns out, and this is a message I want to get out there, if your eyesight is deteriorating, you don't have to wait. If you're willing to pay for it, you can go have that surgery anytime you want. So it's the same people that do the LASIK surgery and stuff like that. Now this one, I've written a whole piece on what the process is. But it doesn't take very long. They ask you a bunch of questions when you get in there. They put a blood pressure cuff on. They make sure that you're okay and stable. And then they start giving you things that numb your eye and putting drops in and stuff like that. And then they insert a plastic. It's like you're wearing, like they implant your contact lenses.
Right.
So you may wonder why I'm wearing glasses.
A little bit.
A little bit. It's so, I can see perfectly fine for this. I happen to like the way I appear on camera better with my glasses on, quite honestly. Adds a little color to my face and so on. But the other thing is I had bad astigmatism. And so it was partially corrected by the lenses, by the way they put the lenses in, the angle of the lenses. And I actually got trifocals in both eyes.
Okay.
And they do work together pretty well for reading and so on, where most people, when they have the cataract surgery, they can't see when they're trying to read. They have to, that's why you see at the dinner table, people passing around a pair of reading glasses.
Right, yes.
I don't have to do that. I just have to get a decent light on the thing and I can read very well. But there is a certain amount of strain reading like a book or something like that. Right. So I like to wear the glasses, and these are also have a blue light filter in them.
Okay.
So for the TV screen and for the computer. So there you have it.
So it sounds like you feel like it's fair to have to take a test at age 80 for driving.
I do, yes. Yeah. I mean, and also, in like the state of California, for example, because I looked into what it would take to get a driver's license there. And you have to pass the written test as well as the driving test. Yeah. So, because my sister, Sarah Jo, who had the dementia, her family her husband wanted her to get her license. And so he kept trying to get her to pass the test, but she never could because of the dementia. Now she was a brilliant valedictorian of her class and all that. But, I understand people age in different ways. Absolutely. And so it's fair enough. It's just scary when you're confronted with it.
When you're confronted with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about bunions?
Oh,
because this is next level aging, right? So, and I know in my peer group, there are 50-year-olds that have bunions too. So just your experience with them, we don't need to go into details about procedures, but just what?
So, that's a whole different thing, but I did want to mention the bunions because we wear shoes and we walk around New York City in shoes that are not appropriate for walking. You'll notice that your sister, her feet are perfectly shaped. And I haven't looked at your feet. I just happen to notice hers because she wears flip-flops all the time. And it's California, so I'm not watching her in her hiking boots.
Right.
The way with you, we look at hiking boots. But anyway, her feet are perfectly shaped, and she's 47. So I started noticing them. In New York, I was wearing heels. I was going into the office every day and a lot of walking. I couldn't somehow coordinate my walking shoes with as much walking as I did in New York, and eventually developed bunions. on both feet, but also I got, now I'm probably wrong. I've got the medical thing written down someplace, but I developed a spur in the joint on one of the feet, in addition to the bunion.
So
And
does that make it painful to walk?
well, it makes it painful to put shoes on.
It makes it
among
painful
other
to put
things.
shoes on. Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing is orthotics aren't mentioned on this list, but you know, it's like I went out for a period of time without wearing high heels. And I was trying to put them on for a business meeting one time. And this is when I was much younger. And I couldn't walk in the high heels. And so I went to see a podiatrist and got my first set of orthotics. And that has made an enormous difference. I put them in my sports shoes. I put them in my hiking shoes. I have them, and that pushes that arch up and takes some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
And so that also does help with not having anything done with the bunions. But I do encourage people, when you get to my age, you want your feet to be fully functional. You need it for balance.
Okay.
So, I went in and got the first one done. It didn't look as bad, but it had that little bone spur or whatever it's medically called in the joint. So anytime I put shoes on, it pressed the foot, the shoe pressed on the foot and caused severe pain. So that was good. And I almost didn't have the second one done, but on that one, my big toe was kind of leaning over into my other toes. And I really didn't like the way it looked. So I would almost call that one cosmetic because, I wasn't in a lot of pain with that one, but I decided to go ahead and do it so that I could wear my sandals and not get annoyed every time I look down at my foot.
And you did this at 72?
Yes.
And would you recommend people, like, if they have those
earlier,
Okay.
as early as they'll take you?
Okay.
And then treat your feet with care and respect. Because I have a friend who's at least 10 years younger than I am, maybe more, probably more. And they wouldn't do it when the bunion was small, and now it's big. And I don't know, it's just like it's gotten to be a whole big deal. And now she has to go to a hospital to have it done. And she's got other problems. So anyway, I encourage people, go in for the cataracts, go sooner for the cataracts, go in sooner for the bunions. Keep those feet and eyes working, as there's plenty of other things that can go wrong. These, don't worry about it. There's plenty to go around. Do this when you can. That would be my best advice.
And what about just your general strength?
Now that is something that has really creeped up on me. And it was like so interesting. Because I do work out with a trainer and we use weights and all this kind of stuff. And, I'm on the treadmill every day. I walk a certain amount and, so I'm getting my heart rate up, keep that blood flowing and all that kind of stuff. But I just noticed that, like, one of the interesting things is I went to push open a very heavy door to get into the garage in our building, and nothing budged. And there were two things going on. One is I thought I was putting enough strength into it, but actually I was unaware of how much strength I had lost. The other point was that I do push-ups, and my mind-body coordination said, "Oh, we're doing a push-up against the door." So it wanted to push my body back.
Okay.
Don't believe everything your mind tells you. It's a liar. It's a dirty liar.
That's good advice too.
Yeah.
So it
So
feels like you've made concerted efforts for a period of time to keep up your strength, but you have found that it's become increasingly difficult to do some things that you used to do with ease.
ease, yes. And one of the things I'm reading is that the grip, your hand grip is more important than just about anything else. And there are exercises for the hand, and I bought a new ice cream press that you have to squeeze like this, like that. And then, so I'm trying to use that. But anyway, yes, that the grip is very important. And to keep that grip is important. And I have arthritis. Arthritis is another thing that sneaks up on you. I've had this for years, but arthritis in my joints, and they're not horrible looking. I don't have horrible arthritis where my fingers are really crippled. It's simply a matter that there are exercises that I need to do and to make sure I keep the grip.
Your grip strength.
Deep grip strength.
And I'm thinking even for someone like a stress ball would be something.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I need to get some of those things. I used to have this putty, but I had it for so many years, I thought it must be totally infected by the time I threw it away. And that I had something going on with my hands, and I was given this, they did physical therapy on my hands, and they gave me this thing that you squeezed this string of stuff. You went up and down and squeezed it, and to increase, basically your flexibility and your strength.
Yeah.
So
when you are observing that is increasingly challenging, like moving furniture or, how are you feeling? Like, what are the thoughts that are going through your mind?
Well, it's like, holy cow, I'm not that old,
Right.
I mean, it's like, that's what your mind is telling you that, and so then my thought process is to basically see what I can do and work with my trainer. So what can I do to train myself to get some of the strength back? One of the things I have read again is that it's very important for people coming into the senior years to eat more protein than they normally, and they're saying we're agnostic. The person I was listening to said we're agnostic as to what kind of protein. It can be pea protein. You can be a vegan and just eat more lentils and beans, things to get that protein in there. I am probably prone to I try to do that as well as animal protein.
So equal opportunity on your protein.
Yeah, but basically that's supposed to help. But the other thing too is that there are certain things I just feel like maybe aren't that safe for my husband and I to be doing, like throwing full-grown cedar trees into our car and lugging them upstairs and things like that. It's getting help.
Yeah.
We have the money, let's find someone. We have someone in our lives that we can call, but you have to schedule around that. Right. That's the same thing like when you finally do give up driving or limit your driving, you have to find somebody who's willing to drive you around.
Right.
Basically.
What's that going to look like? And just to be realistic about it, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's my goal, is to be realistic about these things. And right now, mostly, thankfully there's Uber and some other drive share programs that are very easy. There are taxis. Some people I know have set up regular taxi service. I see the taxis outside the grocery stores. There's delivery. I mean, it's like one of the things I learned a lot during the lockdowns of 20 and 21 that we had here. And that's about delivery services. And they will deliver right to your door, even if you're in a condo.
Wow.
The groceries came, yeah. So just like see what's available, because there's a lot of stuff that we found out about.
Right.
But you don't want to be a shut-in either.
Yeah, you mentioned isolation and feeling lonely.
Yes, and that's something that going into the stores is something I recommend, actually, for the purpose of feeling like you're in connection with other people.
Right.
You get to my age and like go in and have a nice conversation. I found in this drugstore that we patronize that the young women they hire for the cosmetic counter are the friendliest, most positive people you could hope to find in our society.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, yeah, so I can buy anything and take it to I can grab anything and take it to their counter. We have a nice little 5-minute interaction. And we have a thing up here. One of our programs is that when you get certain number of points in this system, that you get $300 worth of free merchandise. You can get, for your points, you trade your points in. That's totally free. That's,
so do you feel like it's worth considering how else to get social interaction? Like obviously people stay home as long as possible, but are you open to the idea of assisted living eventually?
Oh, yes, definitely. I am definitely, and one of the things, seeing your in-laws, especially your father-in-law, in his apartment. And I'm like, I said it in front of him. We could live here easily. Yeah. No, and we went to visit. It wasn't just assisted living. It was something a little bit broader than that, where you could have a separate apartment that was a full apartment, but take advantage of the meal plans and the laundry facilities, and you could it was independent living, but it was in something that theoretically eventually would have had shops. It wasn't quite finished when we went to see it.
But it's like a greater concept of senior living, of independent and assisted and any other levels of care. Yeah.
Yes. And so that is definitely appealing to me. Obviously, we've discussed this. I don't want to do that in Canada. And I'm not, I think people are torn the government is torn because it's cheaper for people to stay in their own homes and have visiting people come in.
Yeah. Which is a great option too. It's sort of like depending on where people are at, but just as we're thinking about ourselves and that next level of aging, it's that planning and just thinking ahead a little bit, because you don't quite feel a chronological age, but you have recognized that, okay, wait a minute, maybe I am identifying as an older woman.
Well, it's interesting because my friend Peggy used to do a lot of things with a woman that she died at 57, sadly. But at the time when she was 57, she was hanging out with a woman who was turning 80. And they were very good friends. They'd go to opera and ballet together, and they socialized a lot. And she had signed up for this one housing situation, but she had to move in when she was 80. And when she got to 80, she was like, she didn't want to give it up because she knew what was coming, but she was completely independent, completely, so she did move in because otherwise she would have lost the possibility. Lost her spot. I mean, most important to me is right now, there's a lot of driving involved. And, you know, I would like to be in a place where I can walk.
Yeah.
Apartment.
Yeah.
For basically everything I want to do.
So taking your
That's
environment into account
Yes.
is just important. And
Yeah.
you mentioned super briefly Peggy, and that's something else that happens with this next level of aging is family and friends are dying. And you mentioned
Dying.
high
Yes.
school cohort. Just what
Well,
are your thoughts on that?
yes. Well, that is, I mean, make younger friends. That's start making younger friends. Because my younger friends I have quite a few younger friends. You know, my older friends have actually, sadly, passed away, most of them. I don't have anybody in my age group, I don't think, at this point. And all of my friends are at least 10 years younger.
Yeah, no, that's really solid. And really just putting yourself in environments where you can curate that and foster it.
Yes, and yes. And so I'm actually kind of a shy person. And most of my close friends have approached me and said, let's be friends. You know, and one of them was my friend who who is now a friend, but at the time, my cats knew her much better than I did because she would come in and take care of the cats, so I was never there. And so as the cats got older and older and needed more help, she and I overlapped. I mean, she taught me a lot of things about medical care for the animals and stuff, and we got to be friendly. And with the last cat being gone, she said, I don't feel like I'm done with us yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so we've developed a very close friendship.
That's so great.
And very supportive for each other.
Yeah.
So solution orient, you know, where we can say, I'm having a problem with this. What are your thoughts?
Which is so beautiful because so often we get into these habits of just complaining. It's like you get together, and I feel like so often what I hear is like a medical report.
Right.
Of, you know, hey, how's it going? Which is a very dangerous question. But I mean, I'm sort of starting to notice it in my peer group. I'm certainly noticing it with the aunts and uncles and family members. Just, well, so anyway, just your thoughts on that. Just how you're thinking about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's interesting. You know about my friend, that is the first book review I got was
yes.
from this friend who is 77, and he has no family and he has extremely few friends. He's, you know, it's, you can see it's very hard. I mean, and he's social. He was trying to find people to socialize with, and it's hard. It's very hard, and I see how hard it is. I mean, we live very far apart, so otherwise we would see each other more often and could support each other better. But yeah, I mean, it's just, and that is another reason about the assisted living, or you know, is that basically, you know, it's having other people around who can help, right, is a big reason to do it. I mean, well, as you know, one of the things I did that you know very well is that I took out long-term care insurance when it was available, and where it basically increased every year. And you know, so I feel like if I physically need to go in, that it will be available.
Right. Well, and you mentioned geography. And so, you know, even for people that do have children, like you're in Canada, I'm in Nebraska, Rachel's in California. And so often for the children, it's incredibly stressful to have parents who are not willing to move, who are
Yeah.
refusing to leave their homes and not
Yeah.
move closer to the children. And so we're watching this next level aging occur
Yes. Yeah.
and are fearful.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
guess just your thoughts or advice to the other parents just on strategy,
Well, I think one of the
thoughts.
things that you and your sister asked me to do, and that we will again go over at some point, again, um, you, I don't think you asked me to do this, but I ended up writing out, because I'm who I am, I ended up writing out different scenarios. If it looks like this, then this is what I'm thinking I'm gonna do.
Right.
If I lose my mind entirely, it's in my prenup, because I married this husband when I was 65.
Right.
It's like, it says in there, if I can't remember who he is to divorce me, and you girls are to come pick me up.
Ship me back to my kids. Come.
Ship me back to my kids. You know, the money's there. It's
Right.
all set up. Ship me back to my kids. It's right there in the prenup.
I'm so excited to record that episode because I think that preparation and thought work and planning that you did is going to help so many people. So there's a little teaser for another episode with my mom.
Yes.
That will be probably part 3 around next level aging, just to think through, like, what are some different scenarios, like short-term disability, long-term disability. So we'll truncate that conversation.
Okay, but
So
the
I'm
other thing
excited.
is, you were asking, like, what is going on that the kids, that your audience, specifically the caretakers
Yeah.
and caregivers, need to be aware of and be on the lookout for, is that we're like, sometimes we're in overwhelm. It's like I called you and said, here are I have taxes in 2 countries. I have to file tax returns in 2 countries. I have to amass this immense amount of information. Now, at the end of the day, I figured it out, and I can set up a system where that actually works a little bit better. But there is a moment where you're like, I can't do this. How much longer, or how much longer will I be able to do this?
Right.
And it's just like looking around the person's home. And I know there's a lot of resistance for people, when somebody comes in and say, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. There's a lot of resistance to that. Or like, why are you eating only, don't ask the person why they're only eating crackers and peanut butter. That's, why is not a question. That's just a challenge. You just don't know what to do with it. Right. You don't know why you're doing it. There's so much you don't know why it's happening. But you remember your grandma Ferris.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're onto something here. It's what I'm hearing you say. It's like these things are changing and things are happening, and it can feel kind of overwhelming. And I'm actually not clear as to why I'm feeling
why this is happening. Why am I not
happening, and why am I resistant? And
yeah, but basically somehow there needs to be enough communication that there can be support. Like, I know it's hard being at a long distance, but it's one of the reasons we want to move closer to my husband's kids.
Yeah.
But we still have to sell the condo because we can't afford to maintain. Yeah. But because something happened, and I'm like, if we were in the same city with his children, we would have 8 people that we could call who would be there in 10 minutes.
Right.
To help us.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like just being honest about that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, also being aware is like, not to say you shouldn't be doing that, but to say, can I come over on Saturday and help you with that? I mean, you look at technology, I am the technology expert.
You are.
In this house. And, and it's something, thankfully, but there are things that are beyond things I just want to talk to somebody about. It's like, what is happening here? Why isn't this working? And, Bell provides our internet service and our TV and stuff like that. And luckily I get a different person every time. It's part of my social life now. I call them up and say, this isn't working.
And I'm lonely. And what are you having for lunch?
Yeah, what are you having? It's like, how's your weekend going?
Yeah.
But,
So, I mean, there's some truth to that, but like the technology is a huge challenge. The handyman stuff. I mean, you've had some issues with that, trying to get good help in.
So there's one other thing I would like to say is that if you're nice to people, they want to talk to you. If you're a little empathetic. I mean, I have had conversations, especially like when I was setting up my website, and I could call as many times as I wanted, but I was only 30 minutes at a whack. So I had to be very careful about what I was asking. This is the issue I want to address today. How do I do this? How do I do this? Now, I let go of that service when it was functioning well enough. It's still not there yet, but those young people would start talking because I'd say, well, this is what it's for. And they were so interested in it that they would say, oh, I'm going to keep working. Let's stay on the line. No, my supervisor isn't around.
So like if you're nice, people are more likely to help you if they're able to. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And also that even if it's like the Bell phone company, I've had some difficult conversations, but I've also had some that, were also technically difficult.
Yeah.
But that by the end of it, and I'm like saying, you really helped me out here. And they're like, you've just been a pleasure to talk to, and so,
I mean, it's the same advice I share with my kids, like be somebody that people want to work with.
Yes,
So
exactly.
Kind. Like we can still be kind.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's easy to get crabby when you get old, but you don't have to. Do a meditation if you want to.
Oh, this is a great segue. So we're wrapping up, and I would love for you to share just final thoughts and words to your peer group, like people who are stepping into this next level of aging. And then I would love for you to share thoughts and words to my peer group, right? The kids, the people who are trying to help. Right. So just thinking about your own peer group, what is something what would you like to share with them?
So one of the most important things that I did was to get into very short meditations every day on gratitude, anxiety, sort of like living in the moment. Because it's one of my favorite people to quote. Thich Nhat Hanh says, you can only live in this moment. You can't live in the past and you can't live in the future. So when you wake up in the morning, this is your moment.
Right.
Just stick with that. I mean, and save a good worry for something you can fix, It's like, so and if you start getting stressed out, check out some of these meditations. I'm especially fond of meditation, which is loving kindness. Yeah.
And you and your husband have been doing.
Yes, we do it as a hug, because one of the things we lack, and this is the isolation thing, physical contact. For seniors. And luckily I have someone around who likes to hug. It shouldn't be more than 30 seconds, folks, because people get impatient. And you should give them something good to listen to. So we have meditations that I've recorded.
That's so beautiful.
that lasts like 30, 35 seconds. So
That's
that,
beautiful. Well, and it sounds like with your peer group, be realistic, get the information, and have a sense of humor seem to be things also that you maintain.
yes, absolutely. And, try to be patient with yourself and with other people too. It's just like, it's so easy to get thrown off your game and to get upset. And it's just like, take a deep breath and let the moment pass. The good moments pass and the bad moments pass. It isn't one or the other. So
Such good advice. And what about us, the kids, who are fretting and worrying and trying to be bossy? And what would you advise them?
I have noticed that, basically, again, being kind with your words is a good thing. And I know we're frustrating. But, to take time, to just try to be patient with a person who is going through this huge change.
Yeah.
And, is uncomfortable with their own mortality. So try not to sweat the small stuff when we, get a little frustrating. Yeah. Because we think something is more important than maybe it is.
And I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Just having an acceptance and just a realization that maybe the way something was 10 years ago is just not the way, or 5 years ago, or last week. Maybe it's different now, and how, like, we used to have pretty elaborate, huge dinner parties and all of that. And that just feels kind of chaotic. So as a kid, there has just had to have been a general love and acceptance of, we want to keep maintaining connection in a meaningful way. And what can we do to shift or make that work for everybody?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, we've been working on that for sure. Like ordering in food and supplementing, but also, just, I mean, it's just like, a lot of times the parent doesn't really know what their limitations are. What was that book? It was Still
Here, Still Alice.
Still Alice. I think that's a really good book to think about and revisit. Yeah. Where basically she, she got frustrated with herself, and she needed help from her children to kind of step away from.
Yeah, maybe if the kids are just able to have a general sense of awareness, and not even present it as like, well, we need to change this or have a big conversation about it, but just to offer a different option as a suggestion, like, get takeout on the second night or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like a win-win, because you're mixing it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's like collaborative. I mean, it's like more collaborative than, I think when I think back on my sisters and my mom, they could not accept her where she was. You may recall this, because you're the one that was doing the caretaking. But my sisters could not find a way to actually be with her, because because she wasn't the way they wanted, the way they remembered her.
Right.
And it wasn't helpful. Right. It wasn't helpful to her, and it certainly was devastating for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way that we proceeded was people just did what they felt like they could do when they felt like they
Yes.
could do it.
Well, that was what
And
we encouraged them to do,
yes,
is to just, and when you come into her presence, don't feel like you have to stay a long time,
right.
um, but meet her where she is.
Mhm.
And they were having a hard time doing that, and a lot of people do. They remember who their parent was,
Right.
a strong person,
Bossy.
made decisions. Mom's not going to like that. And I'm like, Mom is not aware of,
Right.
you know.
And just for the sibling peer group to understand that not everybody, like you did such a beautiful job with your sisters of not being angry with them, not judging them, none
No.
of that.
Everybody has their own, I mean, like I could see it. I could be there with her and it was fine, but I also didn't feel like I had to spend a long time at it.
Right.
A long time each time.
Right.
And just
No
that
quick visit
one little, that one little story about taking my sister and the dog out to visit Grandma Ferris. And within 5 minutes, Grandma Ferris was asleep, my sister was asleep, and the dog was asleep.
You're like,
it took us 45 minutes to get there. And I'm like, I woke everybody up and say, okay, time to go. They didn't even know how long they had.
no anger, no judgment, no
like,
frustration.
It's time to go. I'm like starting a conversation and I noticed that no one's listening. And I'm like, okay, time to go,
Yeah. And it was fine.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine because to the extent anybody remembered, we were there.
Right. Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. This is so good. And we have so many more conversations to record, and I'm so excited about them. So we're going to talk about next time the prep work that you put in to really be in such a great place and great condition and shape and all of that. So I love you, Mom.
I love you too, honey.
And this
and
is
I'm
so fun.
Excited. Yes. And I need I need the kind of light you have. I had a light and it blew out. So
I'll text you the link.
Okay.
All right. I love you and I'll see you next time.
Love you too, hon.
Mwah.